Hello, my staratlas family. It's me, the MetaVerse Explorer. Thanks again for joining me in another staratlas video. It's been a long journey so far, and we're still going because guess what? We're playing the game, right? It is a long-ass game. We'll be here for a long time, so better get used to it. Now, excuse me if I am sweating a bit. It's a little bit hot in Australia, in my part of Australia now. But there's not much news that has come out in staratlas. But this video, I actually wanted to go through the recent post that Michael Wagner has said. Because let's be honest, right? Playing the game is a little bit, how do I say, taxing. And I say this because there is a lot of expenses such as Solana transaction fees. And not only transaction fees, but also just the congestion in Solana, which is making the gameplay experience a little bit subpar, a little bit not what we want. So Michael made a big post and I kind of dissected it a bit. I just want to go through it with you, give you my thoughts, give you my, not thoughts and prayers, but give you my thoughts on the general information that Michael gave us. But first off, I just wanted to say I finally finished my second Fimble Mamba X. I know it's not much at all, but I'm very proud of my second Fimble Mamba X. I'm going to put it to good use. It's going to be mining for me, and I think I have another objective now. Instead of mining hydrogen, that trade is really crowded now. I don't think I want to do hydrogen anymore. Of course, I will mine it just to have my operations running, because you need fuel to be able to go places. But I think I'm just going to go ahead and try and craft 20 or 30 Calico Max Hogs. I think that's my next objective now. So I'm currently mining some carbon. So I'm over here at MRZ20 and I have some stuff that's mining carbon at the moment. Hopefully try and get all that carbon together. And I'm going to move my operations from 25 to MRZ20 because you know what? There's always food supplied in the star base for the base management. I don't have to always be crafting at a slow pace. I'm going to join where the whales are. So I'm going to, from now, when I make moves, I'm going to be where the rest of the people are because everyone else is going to be supplying stuff. So I can piggyback off that instead of my crafting taking twice as long. Anyway, that's just something small, something really small. I just wanted to chat to you guys about it. Am I in the center? Yeah, I think I am. Anyway, let's move on to what Michael has said. Okay, let's move on to what Michael has said. I made just a general little slideshow so me and you can have a heart-to-heart and we can start discussing this. But first off, please make sure you do join staratlas and you join Aphia specifically because we are the best deck. I hope you've been using the new Flipside dashboards. I have. They've been very insightful. That in combination with Eve Eye. So you can build custom fleets and see what your return on investment is. I love it. I'm working through it now. I'm going to go and see it. Okay. So yeah, let's go and see the first thing. So this is the post that Michael Wagner has recently put up in the announcements channel on Discord, right? What's it all about? So so first off, he said, there are issues that the team are aware of. There are solutions in place. They're going to go and think more about it. But he said right now, there is no immediate solution. So for right now, we just have to stick it out, okay? Now, he's saying this because Solana is growing in popularity. It is still getting bigger, granted not as big as it probably used to be, but because, you know, Sui and other layer 1s and layer 2s are taking some of the attention away, but Solana is still growing. But that's the thing. That's actually going to be detrimental to our transaction fees because as Solana grows, right, it's going to be more expensive for us to land our transactions. And if it doesn't land, you probably have to send it twice. And all of a sudden, instead of a mining operation taking 30 minutes, it takes 1 hour. So that's not good, okay? The team are fully aware of this. There is no as he says here, there is no reason to expect we won't face similar issues going forward because Solana is still growing, okay? So and then he gave us a quote from Jacob Floyd. I'm going to read it here for you guys. Yeah, and this kind of encompasses why the team has decided to build on Solana instead of going elsewhere, or instead of doing what the traditional game companies actually do. So let's read his quote. It's hard to fully express how awesome it is from an engineering and security perspective having the fully on-chain game systems. Many MMO projects struggle for years to solve problems that are solved for us by default, by building fully on-chain, particularly related to data security and authorizing user actions. So yes, this is actually true. There's a whole lot of benefits that by being on-chain. So for example, a lot of servers and stuff, you don't have to worry about that, the infrastructure behind it, because the game is actually hosted on-chain. It's all on-chain transactions. The con side of that is that because it's on-chain transactions, you are sharing the network with other people. It's like, imagine if WoW and like Destiny 2 were on the same server and you're sharing the same resources. No, that's not how it works. WoW has their servers, and Destiny 2 has their servers, and COD has their own servers, okay? And Fortnite have their own servers. You don't have servers intermingling, right? That's the whole idea of what he's saying here. So that's by Jacob Floyd. There's definitely benefits. There's definitely pros and cons here. So you have to actually take it as it comes. You have to be happy with it, or you're not happy with it, or you move on, okay? So the other thing about it being on-chain is that, that means it's a bit more open for us. That means that people can see data, people can build programs for the game, and it can keep running and running. Of course, only if people build stuff for it. If no one's building for it, that pro isn't really a pro, is it? Like that's just logical. So let's go on. So Michael asked the question, what are we going to do to improve the user experience? Because yes, it's not that great now. It's not terrible, but it's not great, okay? Like I have to log in. If one of my fleets are actually stuck, Sly isn't able to do it, okay? I have to log in with my Phantom, approve a manual transaction, which is like magnitudes above a normal lower priority transaction. And it costs you money, and it costs you attention, and it costs you stuff away from the norm of the game. And most times, like it's actually very hard to get your transactions to land unless you have a private validator, or a private validator. You have like, infrastructure behind it, and normal gameplay people don't. So it's actually very hard. Let's move on. Let's look at his solutions at the moment, and then he dives into each specific one. So the first one is Apollo, which is the actual test net, or called Atlas net, of the Solana blockchain. So basically, it's like a side chain. It's a test net of Solana. All of those programs we've been able to run on Sage now has actually been on AtlasNet and has been tested to make sure it works really well. So that's Apollo, likely rebranding to something else, maybe not AtlasNet, we don't know. Clone Fork, which we've been leveraging for internal programming testing. So we know that's Apollo, right? And the next thing that they said was an SVM, a Solana virtual machine, or a layer 2 solution similar to Magic Block or Sonic. Now, this gets into the territory of like Arbitrum, Optimism, or a ZK Sync, or if Solana is the Ethereum, and then you have layers above that. So using the Solana virtual machine to run something very similar to Ethereum, but you're actually being Optimism or Arbitrum, or you're being layer 3, for example. So there are some companies in Solana already facilitating this a little bit. The Magic Block is one of them. We had the hackathon, and they were one of the sponsors. And there's also Sonic as well. They were one of the sponsors in one of the things that staratlas has done. So they're probably talking to these people. So it is very possible. Michael breaks this down. That's a maybe, okay? Now, the next one is moving to a new layer 1 to actually facilitate all of these transactions that we're having trouble with. I don't want you to say Sui, because Sui is getting a lot of attention now, is coming up in the ranks, but I haven't done enough research on it. But I would say, nah, I'm good, not Sui. And there's not much ecosystem benefits being on Sui. Solana's a lot nicer so far. So moving to a new layer 1, that means the team will have to create a layer 1. Can the team create a layer 1? My bet is no. That's not their actual expertise at the moment. And also, how damn long will it take to create an entire layer 1? Are you kidding? Some of these have been in production for ages, okay? And then not just creating the layer 1, and then moving all of the stuff that has been specifically created on Solana onto a layer 1. Whoa, man. Talk about years and years and years and years, maybe a decade or so. My God, at the pace that the team's doing. So that's the layer 1 argument. The next one is, which is kind of, I would say, a more not an easier approach, but a more effective approach, right? For your cost isn't so high, your expense isn't so high, and it kind of achieves some of the stuff you want. And this is actual changes to the logic, or the game logic, to reduce transactions. So for example, I'm not sure you're aware of this, but so let's talk about the transactions. You have a fleet, okay? You have a fleet. You have to then load fuel, load ammunition, load food. Then you have to undock. Then you have to sub-warp or warp. Then you have to exit warp, which we don't see nowadays. Remember, we used to have to exit warp. and then you exit warp, and then you had to dock, okay, and then you had to start mining. After you start mining, you stop mining, and then you go warp again, sub warp, and then you have to undock and then dock. Sorry. You see, this is just for like one mining loop. You see how many transactions that is? That's a lot of transactions, like 10 transactions just for one kind of loop. So this is a part of my EVI learnings and trying to reduce my transactions and try and just load up my fleet so they're much more efficient. Efficiency is not the same as net profit, but yeah, you get my point. So that's what I'm talking about. Like for some way, if we can bundle the docking and the sub warp, or the some 2 or 3, or like reduce these transactions to 5 transactions, or like package an entire transaction into one transaction to say, okay, I want to send that thing there. I want you to load it with this much, and I want you to do this and this and save it as an operation, you know? And all of a sudden it cuts it down from 10 transactions to 5 or even 3 transactions, and oh my God, it's really good. But Michael doesn't think that will work. It's a temporary solution. So let's talk about let's give Michael's perspectives on these solutions. Okay, so let's talk about the layer 2 first. He said we won't worry about AtlasNet. We'll talk about it later. Let's talk about the SVM or layer 2. It has a lot of downside. Yes, there's no composability. We lose people in Solana. Okay, we lose kind of like the network effects. You can't have Atlas on Solend or Save, as it's called now. You can't do anything. Okay. NFTs or our CNFTs, our crews can't be on Tensor because it's technically not on Solana, it's on a layer 2 or an SVM. So it's very isolated, right? A good thing and the bad thing, it's isolated, so you might have some free transaction fees or some extra stuff going on that the team can do because they control the layer 2 themselves. But at the same time, you lose a whole bunch more, okay? So let's talk about moving to a layer 1, okay? This is kind of like a brand new blockchain protocol. It's particularly made for Sage. He said it really lacks any real viability. And all that means is like, yeah, it actually does. Like, no, the team are not blockchain. They can't build a new blockchain. That's not who they are, okay? They came from a weed company, for God's sake. So they have to then build a new blockchain and then build all of the programs, all of the years of work that they've put into it now. They have to duplicate that same years of work on this new blockchain. Oh, no, man. Absolutely not. Like, if they probably choose to do this, I'm out. Like, I can't have the team take 3-5 steps back when we're taking 1 step forward at a time. Can't do it. Okay, so that's why it actually lacks any real viability, and I don't think anyone in the community would say we need a new layer 1. No, it'll have to be a layer 2 or something else on top of Solana. I don't think the team are going to move away from Solana. No way. Now, the next one is changes to the game logic to reduce the number of transactions, similar to what they did with the SDU mechanics. This is, I'm sure you're aware, SDU scanning used to be very transaction intensive, and so they kind of did a 6-fold. So you have to wait 6 times as long, but you get 6 times as much SDUs. So it actually works out a little bit. There's a bit of kinks they have to work out now, but it's okay, right? It's not game breaking. Michael said they're really strongly opposed to this. This is a temporary solution. They don't actually want to do this because it's not going to be the same as it is right now. So they don't want to make all these minor changes, right, to affect the economy, where in the next month it might be dead quiet on Solana, and all of a sudden, like, those changes they made are actually game breaking. So they want to go away from changes in this logic. But for me, I'm kind of for this because, like, yes, you don't have to increase I'm looking at things that'll just reduce the transactions, not increase the amount of input that the amount of output that comes from your mining fleet. I'm not saying give us 6 times more mining materials. I'm saying reduce the number of transactions. So bundle them somehow. I don't know, right? Maybe this doesn't exist, but this is me speaking as a non-blockchain developer. Some way, because it takes a damn lot of transactions to do this stuff, you know? Bundle them all together. Or even like you get more resources, right? Same as you did with SDUs, you get more resources, but it takes you longer to actually get them. So, and that reduces your transaction fees. So yeah, like, you know, there's little things that the team can probably do. They said they're strongly opposed, but that's okay. Let's see what they do come up with. The next thing is Apollo, which was actually the first thing. So he said this is actually already functional. We know this because they test all of the Sage stuff on there before it gets to the Solana mainnet that we're playing with now. So he said, let's be very clear. It's a fully centralized layer 1 purpose-built for staratlas testing. Okay, it's layer 1 fully centralized because the team are the only people that run it. There is an avenue that this can actually be very beneficial if you go down this path, and it seems like they've given this a lot of thought, because let's read some of the stuff he's written down here. It kind of makes sense. So the first thing, zero fee network transactions for users. This is true because it's going to be zero fee or like near zero. If it's zero fee, you have to be very careful on how the people securing that blockchain are getting paid, right? And that's in the next paragraphs here. Initially, zero network congestion. He's saying initially because like it won't be as popular in the start, but of course we'll get more popular later, and then later on there might be some congestion. With the DAO given authority to permit new games, new projects, new programs later. A network optimized for staratlas, we know that already. Validators compensated via the DAO, perhaps the first form of revenue distribution. Yeah, so this is how the people securing this blockchain are going to get paid. Not from transaction fees, but from the DAO specifically paying these validators. Yes, no, I don't know enough to actually comment on that. Yeah, like it could work out. It could also not work out at all. He's saying the next thing is a polis locking requirement for validators. That is positive for the rest of the staratlas community because you actually have to lock polis. But let's be honest, what else is polis being used for at the moment? Nothing at all. And the next thing is licensing node sales to validators. This is another kind of revenue source that could possibly go to the DAO or go to Automata. We don't know yet. State hashes secured on Solana, further hardening Apollo security and retaining the relationship with Solana. So basically what this means is that's layer 2. That's a kind of side chain or Apollo or kind of new layer 1. Would actually settle back onto Solana, would be using Solana mostly for security. So that way you still keep your relationship with Solana going, even though you can't really use a lot of the stuff on Solana still. And then of course, Solana programs easily redeployed on Apollo because it was literally a private version of Solana that they're making. So that's a really easy transition. So you can see here, let's just take a beat. The team have thought about this Apollo approach a lot more than some of the other approaches, because for game logic he said no, we're opposed, right? But this is laid out like, oh, look at all the benefits that we've seen here. And he wants to make it clear Apollo would not be a layer 2 roll-up solution. It would just be an actual side chain, a privately secured no, it wouldn't be private because it's validators. Oh well, yeah, it can be private or public validators, we don't really know. And that's it. That's the stuff he wrote. Now, there are some solutions. Yes, some of them are good. Some of them are definitely not going to happen. I would say I'm really a big fan of the game logic. And I would be a fan of just helping the small players. I don't have all the answers myself. So I'm just going to leave it there. I just wanted to share that with you. And because not much else has happened in staratlas in this week. So my friends, that's it. I'm going to leave you and love you. Thank you very much. Bye.